Five, four, three, two, one. We have ignition. Strap in.
And now, live from a lockdown room in Leeswood, comes the Andy Snowden Radio Show. Please welcome the man voted best suited to wear a mask. It's Andy Snowden!
It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show.
You're listening to me, Andy Snowden, here on Calon FM with a stage and screen show here each and every Saturday afternoon from 12 until 3 p.m. And over the years on the stage and screen show, we've had many guests from the world of stage and screen, and indeed the music world as well. And today's guest is the legendary Nell Bryden. And regardless of whether she's on stage or in the studio or indeed at home, Nell Bryden's creative spirit never lets up, not even in lockdown. One of the most consistently creative singer-songwriters of our time, celebrates over a decade of music with the release this week of her brand new album, Nell Bryden, The Singles Collection. And I am so pleased to say she joins us on the line now. And Nell, direct from New York City, it looks to me like you're sitting in your car. Is that right?
So I'm sitting here in New York City in my car, and here's what happens. Here's how things work. We all sit in our cars between 9 and 10:30 in the morning, and the parking warden comes down, and if you're in your car, you don't get a parking ticket, and if you're not, you get a huge parking ticket. So if I can sit in my car, I can park here for the next week because it's a holiday on Monday. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to pay for a parking garage for the next week. So now you got me sitting in my car, the true New York experience. So sorry, Andy. This is so rock and roll, right?
That is fantastic.
Look at it, there it is.
What a story.
Real New York. What a story. So at some point, if you hear a lot of like chaotic honking and people saying, "Get out of the way," it's because the street sweeper's coming by and I gotta go.
Well, I never thought this is the best way. I've never started an interview in that way ever. That's wonderful. What a thing.
Well, it actually is a thing, and I remember when my husband first came to New York, we were doing alternate side parking, and he had never seen this before. It's actually a whole culture in New York. And he came down, and someone had swooped into, because people wait for hours for these parking spots, and someone had swooped into this parking spot, like right in front of somebody else who'd been waiting. The whole neighborhood got involved. This big Italian mafioso guy got out. He started slamming on the hood. He goes, "I don't understand. What's the matter with you?" It was so New York. It could not have been better. So Alistair was just like, whoa, this is like quintessential New York City right here. This is alternate side. No, somebody needs to do a documentary on alternate side parking in New York City.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Well, I know you used to live in London, didn't you?
Yeah, for 10 years. I loved it. A lot more civilized there.
Yeah, well, we
lived. Did you live in London? Or?
Well, I'm initially from North Wales. This is where I live now. And the parking situation. I lived in Leytonstone in East London.
Oh yeah.
Nightmare.
Oh, nightmare.
You had to pay to park outside your own house. So
yes, I know. Well, I had to do that in London too. But here's the thing: being a New Yorker, I was happy to pay to park outside of my own house because I was like, the convenience of that is amazing. Whereas here in New York, it's like renting an apartment. Like people have been known to buy buildings just to have a parking spot. Like obviously, I haven't had enough greatest hits yet, so I'm not in that league. I'm still sitting here doing alternate side parking. It's okay. No
well, we had a garden. I say that loosely. It was a bit like a patio. It was a mess. So I said to my wife, I said, I'll just knock the wall down and we'll just park on the garden. And some guys were they were doing something on the street, and they were lifting up the street and laying it again. And I said to my wife, pop outside and act a bit dumb and ask them if they'll knock the wall down for us. I mean, they did it literally. They took the wall out, they took the garden up. It was flatter than a pancake. And and
you managed to get a parking space then. That's amazing.
Yeah, and they did it for the price of a pint. Well, that's Londoners for you.
The power of feminine charms.
I know.
Cannot be underestimated. Wow.
Yeah. I often say to her, go outside and cry.
You know, you should be scared of is that women can do that. We can do that on command when we want, and we know that it works. So
I've got 2 daughters. I know.
Oh, you are in the weeds, aren't you? Yeah. Brilliant.
Anyway,
brilliant. Okay.
I think 2020 has been I think we can guarantee now this has been probably the weirdest year ever. How's it all been for you?
Well, weird is the operative word, I think. I mean, listen, I think I talked to you earlier. I was in New York during the epicenter of the coronavirus, and Manhattan was bad. It was really bad here. And so I didn't even want to go outside. I would go to the grocery store maybe once every 2 weeks, and I was practically in full hazmat gear because we were all so afraid of, 'cause there's a lot of unknowns, I think, about this last year that we just have not known what we were dealing with.
Yeah.
And there are a few things to complain about because I still have my health, my family has their health, and these very basic things are things we are grateful for these days, but I mean, there was a lot of turmoil in the music industry. Clearly it's decimated the live music industry, and trying to still find your way and how to release music during this time has been very challenging. And I think that's been my path the last years, is knowing that I still need to create in order to stay sane, because I'm looking at these four walls and I'm going a little nuts like everybody else in the world.
Yeah.
And we're not used to quarantine. We're not used to not being able to just go, where we took our freedom for granted. And so then just staring at these four walls and knowing that my way out of this is songwriting. How do I still do that and get it out to people? And how do I still create and still be an artist in this very unprecedented time? And so that's what I've been working on.
Yeah, and you've definitely been doing that, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. But I'm always intrigued by what people used to do as a job before they did music, or went to show business or anything. But for yourself, you were almost sort of destined to do it. You were singing in the womb, I presume.
I was. I think it's interesting because I came from a very artistic family. My mother is a classical soprano, so I would go on tour with her. And when I was younger, when I was a little older, she wouldn't take me, and then it was very hard, sort of as a child, to be left by my mother who'd go on tour. But I really was exposed to that world and to the idea that being an artist is something you can do as a career. It was normalized for me and my family, I think, in a way that it's not for a lot of kids that are thinking about being musicians. My dad is a painter, and so he was a stay-at-home dad, and he was doing architectural renderings at night to sort of support us, and he would sculpt and paint during the day in our big Brooklyn loft. It was like a very romantic, kind of idealized way of thinking about art, and it felt normal to me. So when I went out and decided to be a songwriter, it was only that I was carving my own path, because I was not doing the style of music that my mom does and loves. It was more my style. Like, I love Dusty Springfield, I love Janis Joplin, I love Jimi Hendrix. Those were my heroes.
Yeah,
and she was like Schubert and Schumann and Mozart. So it was very different in that regard. So that was my thing. I was just going to do that. Now, of course, I had to make money along the way, and I had the waitressing jobs and the nannying jobs, and I remember one time I was walking around the streets of New York trying to get signatures on a petition, and I would get $1 a signature or something, or like 50 cents a signature. So I was just stopping people on the street. I mean, it was like, and it should be said, I was terrible at everything I ever did. I was a terrible waitress, absolutely horrible. I was an okay nanny, but I wasn't good with I was good with the kids, but not with the parents. So it didn't work out so well. So thank goodness, this was very clear. This was my path in life.
But I've heard you say before that your dad almost treated it like a full-time job, and that instilled in you as well that if you were going to do it properly, you have to treat it like you get up in the morning, almost 9 to 5. Make sure you practice. Make sure you turn up on time. Make sure you're prepared. All that.
Well, I don't want to say the word job, because I think job sort of implies that you are. I think people think that being a musician is just such a wonderful thing to do with your life, and they're right. That it's not a job, because it's not like you're working for somebody else, and it's not like you're going for a paycheck. But it is a career, and it is work. It is something you work at. And if you don't work at it, then you're not, you get out of it what you put into it. And I found that even people that have sort of had huge successes early on, they still have to work really hard to sort of keep that up and maintain that level of success that they have later on. And, you just can't get away with doing anything in life without putting the hours in. And for me, the putting the hours in was the just getting my feet onto the road and traveling and playing every single venue that I could find. I mean, when I started out, I was pretending to be my own booking agent, and I'd be this woman Janice from New York, and I would say it was always like based on the character from Friends, you know, Janice.
Yeah.
And because I knew that that people wouldn't take an artist seriously if I was calling up myself saying, hey, I'd like to play at your venue. So I had to pretend to be the agent of that person. So I'd be like, this is Janice, and I represent Nell Bryden, and she'd like to play in your club on such and such a day, you know. And they would book me, and then I would just pack up my suitcase and have all these CDs burned, and I just barely any clothes, mostly full of CDs I was going to sell, and I just throw it all into a suitcase and get on a flight and go over to Europe, where I was actually able to sell CDs. I mean, in the United States, it wasn't happening for me, so I had to sort of go elsewhere. And I think a lot of artists have had to do that too. Like Jimi Hendrix was my hero, is my hero, and he had to come over to the UK first to really find his path in music in order to then go back to the States and be taken seriously there.
Yeah.
So you just got to get out and work.
Absolutely. And when you look at things like the X Factor or like Pop Idol and these kind of things, do you despair, or do you kind of embrace that as just a different type of way in?
I despair a bit. I would be lying if I didn't say I didn't despair. Maybe I despair because I know I would do so poorly in that medium. I would do so terribly because you have to sing what somebody else tells you to sing, and you have to do it. You have to like learn in front of all these people on TV, and TV has never been a medium that I've been particularly comfortable with because I got my chops from playing tiny little venues in front of like drunk people that were there to watch the football game, you know. And if you can win them over, then you can win over people, you know, progressively more. But in front of a TV audience, I think that it stresses me out, I think, to be able to not have the long road, to be able to sort of cut your chops in your own time. And I think that I've known some people that have won it and have also been in the competition, and I think that it's been very challenging for them to try to maintain that level of fame and that level of success later on in their careers when they're clearly very talented musicians. And it's just hard when you've gotten chewed up and spit out by the industry to figure out who you are after that process. Yeah. So for better or for worse, because I didn't have success early on, I feel in the end like I have more ownership in my career about where I am now, you know?
Yeah, brilliant. And I've got to ask you, I mean, ironically, you started with the living room sessions last year, and really weirdly, fortuitously, I would imagine, everybody's doing it now. So,
isn't that weird?
What made you do it and to start off with?
Well, it was actually kind of selfish. It was because I love playing with my band so much, and I'd gotten to the point, you know, these guys that I have played with, so many wonderful people over the years, but I really love the band that I'm playing with right now. They're like brothers to me, you know. My daughter calls them Uncle Ali, Uncle Seb, Uncle Ben, Uncle Dave. Like they're just so great, and they're such great musicians. They make me better, because when you have that level of, you know, expertise and honesty and emotion in somebody's playing, and nobody's trying to step on anybody else, you're really playing like an ensemble. It just makes everybody better. So I was in between tours, and I thought, I don't want to wait another 6 months to a year to play with these guys again. I got to play with them now. And I'm just going to pretend I've got something going on. We're going to play in my living room. We're going to get my film crew friends down. We're going to film it, and we'll put it online, and I'll call it the living room sessions. And really it was just so that I could like have them down to London and, you know, and have an excuse to play in a room with them again. And it turned out to be something sort of magical, because when you're playing in your living room without an audience, you're just playing for each other as a band. It takes on a different sort of different feeling than it does when you're actually trying to sort of elicit a response from an audience. It's just a different vibe.
And I love it as well, because I was watching some of it earlier, and there's you in your living room. There's the song I think I saw when I was watching Sirens, and you've got all the violins, and then there's your drummer in his bedroom. It's quite it's quite funny.
Right. Well, that's awesome, because you're talking about the house music sessions I did on Radio 2 this last spring, and actually that was amazing because the BBC Concert Orchestra were playing all remotely from their homes, and I was playing in Manhattan, so that was super living room like, but remote quarantine style. Yeah. And to pull that off as a technical feat, it was amazing anyway. But also I think it was sort of metaphorical for that song Sirens for me, and also for how I feel like we're going to move forward in this very sort of unprecedented traumatic times that we live in right now. It's the sense that like we are more connected than we think we are, and we can still collaborate, and we can still act in a very unified and loving way, even if we're not physically in the same spaces together. I think that there's still a sense of community and of togetherness, and that really came across in that song for me when we did it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the things that I'm going to take away from lockdown, actually, that the whole I'd never heard of Zoom in March. I don't know about you.
Me neither. I know. Nobody had heard of Zoom, and then all of a sudden your whole life is on Zoom. It's bizarre. Yeah. My daughter's school was all on Zoom. All of my writing sessions, like I just wrote, a songwriting session with a couple of guys from Nashville the other day on Zoom, and trying to figure that out also with the like lag in time is like it's very comical. Yeah. So, but everything is like this now. It's just a whole new culture, isn't it?
Yeah. And it was very. This is my first Zoom interview, by the way. And most interviews I've done either on
you're
the phone.
Doing very well.
Well, I said to my wife, I said, I'm a bit nervous about it. She said, what? She uses Zoom all the time with her work, and she was going, what's the problem?
Yeah.
And I said, well, it might not work. It might go a little bit wrong. And she went, it never goes wrong. It's fine. Get on with it. And I'm loving it.
Well, I think it's lovely that she says that, but it has gone wrong before, and I've seen it, and it's hilarious. And it's usually with school meetings. It's usually like when everybody is on a big town hall meeting and somebody has not muted themselves. Like, take note, people listening to this right now. Mute yourself. Because I have heard entire intimate conversations between nannies and husbands and other people walking in, and everybody on that town hall heard that too.
Oh no, I know.
So embarrassing.
Well, that's what worries me, because it says we need to use your camera, and then I think, is that camera gone off now? Is that 11%
right
now?
It's probably staying on all the time because Google's watching you. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah, very, very, very much so.
Scary.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times I get to interview lots of singers and lots of songwriters, but never the two sort of meet, because I'm always intrigued. Are you this type of person that is always writing wherever you are? Do you see something and go, I must write a song about that? How does it work for you?
No, I would love to say I'm prolific. Like, my father is a really prolific person. He wakes up in the morning, he paints every day, and he's always doing it. It just gets up, and he's just done thousands of paintings, so that's just what he does. But I don't work that way, and I wish I did, but I also sort of, I'm never not entirely creative, because I'm walking through life and I'm sort of experiencing things, and I'll pick up ideas, and I used to write them on napkins. Now I write them on my phone, and I'll have these little snippets of ideas for what I'd like to say, or something that made sense to me or stuck with me. But it sometimes will take a while for me to actually have the time to sit down and commit to writing that song. And I'll do it in many different ways. I can co-write with other people. I can write it myself if it feels like it's something I personally need to write. And it, often I'll sort of get in a sort of cyclical thing where I need to write as many songs as I possibly can, because that's just where I am emotionally. And then months will go by and I'll just be doing nothing but, I hate to say it, but I'll be doing like social media online, and then I'll sort of wake up a couple months later and be like, oh, I feel so bored with myself. I need to create again. Like, I don't want to talk about myself anymore. Like, I'm talking to you right now. It's the promotional side of me. And then the creative side of me is very introverted and not as easily able to sort of have a conversation, because I'm still forming the thoughts in my head. And so it's two different sides of me. And I wish I could say that I was always songwriting, but life gets in the way. Being a mom gets in the way. Having to do laundry gets in the way. It just happens. Yeah. And there you have it. But what a magical thing when it does happen. Not to go on about it, but when it does happen, like it happened 2 days ago, there was nothing in the morning. And then these two guys and I wrote this song. And by the afternoon, there was a song. And it's still magical that from nothing, from thin air, you've just pulled something that now totally exists and is a melody and is lyrics just going through my head. And it's just sort of miraculous to have that, just pulling it out of the ether, and then suddenly something exists. It's just amazing when it happens.
And you're a multi-instrumentalist. Do you have a favoured instrument that you like to write with?
I mean, just because I play many instruments doesn't mean I'm very good at any of them. I mean, I'll play the bongos for you too if you like, but I don't want to hear it. I think it's guitar. It's always, I played cello for many years. It would be probably fairly disastrous if I picked it back up now because I'd be so out of practice. But that was great training for me to pick up guitar. And guitar is such a natural thing for the influences that I had, everyone from Joni Mitchell to Keith Richards. Like, it had to be guitar that I was going to learn. And so that's my main instrument, especially traveling around. That was sort of the one that made the most sense. But I love piano too, not because I'm good at it, but almost because I'm not good at it. I think of it like a songwriter. So it's just a very different voicing for the chords. It's much more sort of, it's like beautiful math playing the piano because it's so perfectly lined out. And there are 1,000 different ways to play one chord on a guitar, but there's only really one way to play something on a piano. And if you're going to change the voicing on it, then it's very clear what you've done, and people can sort of see why it sounds a certain way. So it makes songs come out, like I've written songs on piano that I could have written on guitar, but they wouldn't have happened because hearing those same chords wouldn't have inspired the same feeling. There's just something about the tenor of the frequency of the piano that inspires a different feeling for me in a song than a guitar will. I don't know about any of these other multi-instruments that you're talking about because I really don't play any of them.
Would you describe yourself as an instrument geek? And Gary Barlow, who I know you've worked with, our very own maestro, Gary Barlow.
A national treasure.
He describes himself as a musical geek. He loves collecting. If he's ever abroad and he'll see something really obscure, he'll have to buy it.
Yeah.
Are you the same yourself?
Well, he collects synthesizers, I think, and he's got a huge collection of them. And, I don't think my credit card has quite the same flexibility that his does in terms of picking up things around the world. But I do feel like I love guitars, and I have way more guitars than my apartment size allows for. So, I have probably about 10 guitars, and I love them. And each one of them is just special. They have their own personalities. They're like children. Like every sibling is from the same parent, but they're just totally different in nature. And these guitars, each one sort of has a personality and has a character to them that just is so appealing to me. I particularly love vintage instruments because they have a history to them, and the wood has sort of taken on an experience from the years of being out in the world. And I love that. I love that sense that you can sort of create from these very sort of personal instruments like that.
Now, many people have written lots of songs actually during lockdown, but your track "These Changes," in a game of top trumps. Do you get top trumps in America?
No, what's that? Well, we have another trump, but let's not talk about that.
And it ain't top.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, there's a game of top trumps, and it's basically you get graded on things, and I would say that out of all the things that have been written in lockdown, These Changes is it's an absolutely phenomenal bit of work. Did you intentionally write something about lockdown, or did it just happen one day and you thought that kind of rings a bell with now?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I think that it doesn't get old when people say that song means something to them because it's so personal to me. It's so honest about what I was going through this spring. I just wanted to have a sense in songwriting. It's so important to me to be honest about what I'm going through and how I'm feeling, because otherwise what's the point? I mean, I'm not the kind of songwriter that's going to write something that's going to make somebody want to go to a club and go dancing all night and go ooh, that's just not me. I write songs that make me want to feel something, that make me feel connected to both sadness and joy and life and humanity and people and myself. And I wanted to write something that was showing the not glossy side of life, the side of life that is not perfect, the side of me that was looking at the four walls during quarantine and thinking, marriage is really hard and life is very challenging, and I'm not doing a particularly good job today. Today I don't feel good about myself or my life or my choices, and I feel like I'm going a bit mad. And the only thing that's really getting me through this right now is listening to a Joni Mitchell song and feeling like, I just have to be honest with myself that it's not okay right now. And that's what I was going through when I wrote that song. And I think that it's resonated with people because it's okay to say it's not okay sometimes, you know.
Well, I think it best if we just have a listen to it, shall we? We're speaking to Nell Bryden this afternoon on the Stage and Screen Show on Calon FM, direct from New York City, and this is the brand new single from her brand new album, The Collection. This is These Changes. We'll be right back with Nell Bryden.
Nothing louder than silence.
That's the absolutely stunning These Changes, the brand new one from Nell Bryden, taken from a brand new album, The Collection. And Nell, I need to ask you actually that yesterday saw the anniversary, the 19th anniversary, incredibly, of 9/11.
Oh yeah.
And I know for you it was a very almost incredible, as it was terrifying for you, your experience of 9/11. Can you explain to us what was going on for you that day?
Well, you know, I have traveled so many miles and I have met so many people since then, and I can't say that I remember all of that terribly clearly, but that, you know, it was like 19 years ago now, and I remember that day like it was yesterday. It's so burned into my memory. It's so clear, and I think maybe it's something that, you know, when a big tragedy like that happens, it just really sticks with you. But I was living in downtown Manhattan, down in Greenwich Village, in my little place on Perry Street, and it was probably just about a mile or so away from the Twin Towers, and I heard the first plane fly overhead. And I was getting up to walk my dog, and I had forgotten his leash, so I went back upstairs. But normally at that point I would be down by Battery Park City, and I'd be over just by the World Trade Center walking my dog down there. But I had forgotten the leash, and I'd sort of woken up late that day, so I had to, you know, go back up. And as I was in the apartment, I heard this jet plane flying over the buildings, and it was so low that I thought that plane is going to crash. And then my next thought was immediately, no, it's not. This is Manhattan, and we know what we're doing, and of course it's not going to. And then I went out shortly after and saw the cutout of the wings, and, you know, the burning wingspan and the plane. I could see the shape of the plane exactly as it had flown in. It was just slightly on an angle. And it was so bizarre. It was so hard to put together in my head that was full of people who were dying at that moment, to be standing on the street, because I still had my innocence. I think we all still at that point had our innocence. Yep. And we didn't consider that the worst could happen. You know, it just wasn't something that we would have considered. And so then when the second plane, you know, crashed in, and then I saw the towers fall, and it was just, you know, the whole thing was so awful. But the confusion, I think, was really, you know, I think sometimes people that had TVs watching in the United Kingdom knew more what was going on than I did, because I was in the city just sort of seeing it and seeing this wave of people covered in dust walking up 7th Avenue, just looking like sort of white zombies because they were just covered in dust walking up. And so that was obviously the day's events was so difficult. I was right near St. Vincent's Hospital. We were waiting for people to come, and we were waiting for, you know, all these ambulances lined up, and nobody ever came. But what I did notice that day was that New Yorkers, traditionally these people who are supposed to be so hard and so unapproachable, everybody pulled together like we were this little village, like we were just, you know, all in this together. Everybody became a neighbor, and it was like everybody was your friend, and you had to help each other out, and that was the only way through, and everybody pitched in. And I had this sense that there was some hope rising from these ashes of this terrible experience, that there was some, I don't know, like a feeling that collectively we were going to get ourselves through these terrible events. And that's kind of carried me through a lot of my experience in life. And certainly with coronavirus now, I feel like I still have this sense that our only hope to get through these sort of unprecedented times is through communal action, is through sort of seeing the humanity in each other, and not just leading with fear, but treating each other like everybody's your neighbor, and really being in it together. And I guess I still have hope there's plenty of reasons to lose hope in this world that we are in now, but I still have hope that there is a way that we're going to get each other through what we're going through and come out the other side stronger.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing about 9/11, I think, for me, strangely, as you quite rightly pointed out, it's the similarity between that and coronavirus is we've got nothing in our brain to kind of go, oh yeah, it's like that, because it was so alien at the time.
Yeah,
even to this day, I still think, did that happen?
Same. Exactly the same.
It's just too much. And I've got friends that live in New York and just outside New York, and they were very as you say, everybody, they all came together. They all became quite poetical in the way that they spoke. Yeah, they were all. It wasn't just a strange time at the time. It's a strange time even today when you think, my God,
it's a very strange time.
I mean, you mentioned Friends earlier, and you see an old episode of Friends, and you see the Twin Towers there, and you go, whoa!
And they're so innocent. Oh my God, it's just they're so innocent. I think even in New York, it was different, the sense of community and of helping each other out this time, because like this time during the coronavirus, I would go outside and New York would be a ghost town. There would just be nobody on the streets. It would be totally empty. And for New York, that is eerie to have. It was like that movie Vanilla Sky, in Tom Cruise and Times Square. Nobody out, just literally no cars, nothing. And the only time that I was aware that there was people in the city was when it was 7 o'clock and everybody would start cheering for the healthcare workers. Yeah. And then all of a sudden from behind all the windows in the buildings, you'd hear just loud noise of people, honking and cheering. My daughter and I had our tambourine out and stuff. And it was amazing because suddenly you were aware that the city was still filled with people and they were just all behind closed doors, but we were still connected and still in it together somehow. And that was very moving, I think, this last year. I think you had something similar over there, and it was very moving to see people connect that way.
Well, that's the bizarre thing, because you live in New York City. I live in a small village in North Wales, but it's exactly the same, because we were. Yeah. I mean, it was so eerily quiet. There was no planes, there was no cars, no one was out at all. And then every Thursday night, we'd all clap for our NHS and care workers and people on the front line, and it kind of it gave a focus. Do you know what I mean? It was something
just lovely.
Yeah, it was lovely that. But you of course you lived in London. We spoke earlier. You lived in London for 10 years. Was it the last 10 years, or have you been?
I've been back for a year. I moved back just last summer to New York, and I was very lucky to become a British citizen before I left, and that was really important to me because both because of work, because I want to be able to go back and forth there, but also because I started to really identify with the UK. The UK for me really embraced me musically and personally. I have so many friends over there. It felt like home, and it was a real side of me that was very true. So I'm so proud now to be a dual citizen, because it feels like I have these two sides of me that are both validated, which is wonderful. And I lived there for 10 years, and it wasn't always like 10 years in the same spot. I was over there touring, and then I was renting places, and then I would stay in a little bit here and there. And then I finally got an apartment in Notting Hill, and it was great, and I
nice.
Felt so settled, and I met my husband Alistair there, and it just was it was a magical time, and we had our daughter over there, and I loved it. And in some ways it's been hard being back in New York, because this is a hard city. It's a city that daily life it's very glamorous. It's an exciting city, but daily life is a grind, and you don't just sort of get to go to the grocery store and just pick up your things and go home and make a nice meal and have peace and quiet. Like everything feels like a competitive sport. Like going to the grocery store feels like a competitive sport here. It's just like so intense that I think now, having moved back and being older and having a kid and 2 dogs, the intensity doesn't appeal to me in the same way that it did when I was in my 20s, and I was like, oh, this is so amazing. I'm single and life is fantastic, and who needs closet space, So But now I'm like, I need closet space. I need closet space.
But hopefully in May you hopefully be back over here touring, because you're meant to be touring now, of course.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I'm meant to be touring now, and that may be why I sound a bit like complaining about it, is because I've just sort of been in my apartment like everybody else. So, the magical things about New York are not happening right now. There are no museums, there are no concerts. There are restaurants, and it looks a bit like Barcelona because everybody is eating, their meals on the sidewalk now. But I was supposed to be in the UK in May, and it made so much sense to postpone it because, in hindsight, everybody had to do that. But I put it for next May 2021. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the world. We have no idea.
No.
But I'm hoping that by next spring we have a vaccine and life is sort of settled and we're back to the point where we can have live music. That will be the last thing to come back. I promise you, live music is going to be the absolute last thing to come back.
Yeah.
But it is essential in a poetic way, not essential in the sort of, I'm well aware that there are things that we need in a daily services way, but there is something that is missing from cultural existence without live music, and I'm very excited to get back into a room and have that feeling again of playing with people there and have that buzz of the room with music in it.
Yeah.
Oh, guess what?
Ooh.
Here's the street sweeper. You're gonna have to pause. Chaos is about to happen here.
Cool.
Everybody's moving, so bear with me, otherwise I'm gonna lose my spot.
Brilliant.
Here comes the street sweeper. Okay. You are now getting a total insight into how New York works, because everybody has been parking like musical chairs. Then we all move at the very last minute to make room for this street sweeper who is going to come by now. You're not actually hearing all the honking or anything, but everybody's got a musical chairs, get their spot. But hold on.
This is brilliant.
You really didn't sign up for this, did you? You know what I don't want? I don't want to have a crash right now. That would be a horrible ending to it. A lovely interview.
They don't get this at the BBC.
They don't get this. Okay, now look at this. I'm going to hold this up so you can see this guy coming. He's coming back here. Oh, no, there's still cars there. All right, anyway, I can talk to you while this is happening. I've got my hazards on.
Fantastic.
Let me narrate what's happening. So everybody has been parking on the side street here. And New York parking is so expensive, it's like renting another apartment, basically. So when you're only here for a bit, which I have been this summer, you avoid paying for a parking garage by doing alternate side parking, which means once a week you have to go sit in your car for only an hour and a half, which doesn't sound like much, and it's not, except when this street sweeper, who is now coming down with his street sweeper, when he comes by, every single person has to get out of the way. There he goes.
There he goes.
There he goes. Now we're all going to musical chairs. Run, run, run back to our spots before anybody else takes it. Go, go, go.
This is the most bizarre thing.
It's just the weirdest thing, Andy, and I'm so sorry that you have to hear the unprofessionalism of this. But somehow everybody is backing. It's like the, in Fantasia when they have those things and the pink hippos all start dancing together. It feels a bit like that right now. Because here we go. We're all pulling in line together.
Well, that's fantastic. I wish everyone could see this.
Nobody would know that I'm on the phone.
I'm quite impressed with your parallel parking.
Oh, no. Oh, dear. You're quite impressed with my parallel parking. I don't think the guy behind me is, though. Oh, dear. Okay. Well, I'm going to let him go. I'm going to pull up a bit. What are you doing, New Jersey? Don't back up anymore. I got nowhere to go. Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to go backwards a little bit. Hold on, Andy. We got it. We're in this together. Okay. Tell your wife she has never seen a Zoom like this before.
I'm not sure anybody's ever seen.
I'm not sure I ever want to see this again either. I feel like I'm on the sidewalk. We're all on the sidewalk. Okay. Andy, hold on. Hold on.
I'll let you concentrate.
I'm going to concentrate. Yeah, because... Oh, he just got out and gave a shrug, like, good enough for Jersey, good enough for me. Okay, he's going to do it too. All right, Andy, you can keep asking me questions. I want to see. Let's do the wildfire question answer.
Is it illegal
what
to
do you
park
think
on the sidewalk?
On the sidewalk? Oh, definitely, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a big no-no.
See, that's one thing in the United Kingdom we all do, and it's a pain for
I know.
if anyone's sort
You know
of
what
disabled.
else you guys get to do is, yeah. You know what else is illegal is parking facing two different directions. Like everybody's got to face the same direction. So.
Oh, really?
Hey, guess what? I got my space and I'm here. I'm back. How exciting is that? I just did my first radio interview while doing alternate side parking. That is so rock and roll. I can't even tell you.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome for the most memorable and also possibly the most boring interview you've ever done in your entire life.
And people call you crazy Americans. I'm a bit confused by this. What's going on?
We're totally crazy. Somehow, Nell Bryden thought it was more important to get a parking space than to be professional on the radio. Go figure.
Well, just a couple of other things, because before you go, because your tour, as we were just saying.
You do need to go. You need to go now.
We were talking about your tour, and the closest you're coming, I think it's the first date of your tour. It's in Shrewsbury. That's just outside. It's about 20 miles from here. Go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say there's a lot of history in that place. It's going to be in the Henry Tudor House, and it's where Henry VIII stopped, I think, on the way, and he to vanquish something like Richard something or other, and he just, it's got a lot of history in it, which is so cool for an American, because Americans are like, yeah, we got the World Series and we own the world and everything, and then we go over to England, we're like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, do you like to do the touristy things when you're out and about?
Well, because I lived over there for so long, I think that I sort of didn't do as many touristy things as I would have liked to, because I sort of considered myself a resident. But and also when you're on tour, you're sort of on Groundhog Day, because you travel during the day, then you set up, you do your sound check, then you go get dinner, then you play your show, then you meet fans afterwards, and you go to your hotel room, you have a few drinks, and you go to bed, and it's the same again the next day. There's not much time to do things. So I do like to try to build in time, like a couple of days here and there, to see things, because it is so miraculous to be able to have this passport of music to go all over and see these things. I mean, I've seen more towns in the UK than most people that have lived there their whole lives, and that's pretty incredible to be able to sort of say I've gotten to do that because I'm playing songs for people. I mean, how cool,
Yeah.
So
do you get
but not as many touristy things.
Do you get different reactions from different parts of the country or different parts of the world? I mean, are an American audience more are they different to a British audience?
Well, yeah, I mean, so like, for instance, American audiences are different. An audience in New York is very different from an audience in a small town in, say, Western Massachusetts or something. They're all just different. In the same way, I think that when you go to a place in London, your crowd is a little different than when you play up in Scotland in a tiny town. I played a place in Kinross, and it was like, when I played Glasgow, it's like the rowdiest audiences ever. They're so much fun. And then you go play London, and people are much more sort of like, we've seen it all, we've done it all, try to impress us, and it's great, because then you have to win them over too. But I found northern audiences generally to be a lot more warm and kind of like gritty and honest. Like there was something sort of unpretentious about people the further north and west you go, that it just, you get away from the sort of southeast London area, and people just sort of are living life because life is to be lived. It's not because you're trying to be cool or anything. And I always really appreciated that. I love that.
Yeah, marvelous. And we better talk about your album.
Well, I feel like
remember, you got an album.
My album in the street here.
I've been with you for about 45 minutes now, and we haven't talked about your album yet. Today's the release day, which is really exciting.
I'm a parking instructor. Today is release day, yes. And in true surreality fashion here, I was awake between 2:30 and 6:30 this morning, just sort of panicking. Had I forgotten anything? Is everything in order? What's my grocery list for tomorrow? Like everything that, is so unnecessary in the middle of the night. And I think it's just because it's this big day for me. Like the album is coming out today, and it's been a long road to get here, and I'm just excited, and I have this sort of anxiety and excitement at the same time. But here it is. It's today.
What I was going to say is it a bit like Christmas, or is it more like exam results day? How does it feel?
Well, it's not like Christmas because there's fewer fights with family and less crying. So. about the same amount of alcohol involved, though. So yeah, there's that. I think it feels better than exam day because with that you're trying to match, somebody else's standards. Like, here's our test, and did you do well on it? And this is my own endeavor. This is me saying I want to put this album out because these are my songs, and this is a collection of singles that I've done, for better, for worse, and they've gone on the radio. It's not a best of because it's not what I think is necessarily my best work. That's hugely subjective and it's different for everybody. And it's not greatest hits because none of them have been hits, so I can't say greatest hits, so it's just a collection of radio singles that sort of miraculously have gone on the playlist of national stations, and as an independent artist that's a big deal. And I just felt proud enough of myself that I wanted to put them together as a body of work. And when I was going back and I was listening to them, it was sort of like postcards of my life from that period. Oh yeah, I was thinking that at that point. I was in love with that person. I was living there at the time. I was traveling there. And it was so nice to go, because I never listened to songs after I've released them. I never listened to them again. I just, put them in a shelf, and because otherwise I'll find things I want to change about them. And I go back and I listen to all these songs, and I got to the end of it and I thought, there's one more that is missing from this. And that was these changes. Yeah. And that was me today. That's what I'm going through now. And so that it was really important as a sort of like a radio map of my emotional journey in life, and what sort of where I've been and where I've traveled and what I've been thinking. Then it was a nice thing for me to put together, and for me. I just hope people want to listen to it, but really you got to do something that you believe in yourself in life, and that this is something I wanted to do. So that's where we are today.
I was going to ask you actually if you're it's a weird question really, but are you a fan of yourself? Do you have CDs of yourself in the car, or that doesn't happen for you?
I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I have friends and family that think they're doing a really lovely service to me by putting my music on when I walk in or we're at a dinner party, and it's the worst thing ever. It's so awful. It basically absolutely makes it impossible to enjoy myself at that meal, because I'm listening the whole time thinking, oh, I should have turned that bass down. Oh my God, why didn't I change that lyric? I've just rhymed and with sand, but it's so basic, and like the whole time I'm thinking, and it's impossible for me to have it on in the background and not listen to it. That's true with a lot of music. It's never background music for me. I can't really have music sort of playing in the background without, like, even if it's very low and I'm in a store, people will try to have a conversation with me, and I'm listening to the elevator music in the background and analyzing the lyrics. It's just how I think. Yeah. So, but yeah, note to self: if you're trying to impress me, please do not put my music on if you're inviting me over to dinner. I will leave. No, I'll eat first, but I will leave.
Well, there you go. If they want you to leave, that's what they'll do now.
Exactly. Fast exit.
Because people used to say, if you ever put your wedding video on, we're leaving. So I used to slip the wedding video on and just press play.
When it's time to go, that's brilliant.
Off you go.
That's so clever. Off you go. How about a slideshow from our honeymoon? That's next.
Nell, I've got to tell you that everybody I've spoken to running up to this interview that I've told that I'm going to be speaking to you today, they've all had the same kind of reaction. They've all been sort of, I love Nell Bryden.
She's mad.
And I was wondering, it's probably something that you're not aware of, and I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Oh, that's so lovely. I'm so glad that you finished that sentence with that, because there could have been so many other ways to finish, and I would have believed it.
No, it's been an absolute treat to speak to you this afternoon. Thanks ever so much for that. It's morning for you, of course.
I know, and I'm so sorry you're going to have to erase this all and find another artist to talk to instead. But I had fun doing it, so.
I knew this was going to be a little bit different, and different it has been. Thank you ever so much.
A little bit different. You are so welcome for a little bit different. Oh, Andy, you're such a sweetheart. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being patient during my alternate side parking madness.
Not at all.
This was really fun.
Wonderful. You take care of yourself. Good luck with the album.
We'll see you. Say hi to the family.
We'll see you back in Britain next year.
Yeah,
lovely.
Not too long. Stay safe.
All the best to you. Take care.
Love.
Thanks, Nell. Bye. Bye.
Last night I dreamt I was
The absolutely stunning Sirens, taken from Nell Bryden's brand new album, The Collection. Out now, available to download from all the usual places. Go get it. This is the Stage and Screen Show with me, Andy Snowden, here each and every Saturday on 105 Calon FM. Good afternoon to you.
Calon FM on 105 FM. Your community, your music.